Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 4 of Bordeaux Unpicked, where Aaran and I, sometimes just the two of us, but mostly joined with a third person, look at the weekly behaviour of the Bordeaux releases, pick them apart, what's worked, the wins, the prices, what's not, and try to give you some sense of our thoughts and musings. My name's Joe Muller, and good afternoon, and I've got Aaran.
A rose between two thorns today.
Yeah, indeed. We have a member of the A team in the house, Mr. William Hargrove.
Good afternoon. Class is permanent, form is temporary, I think is the phrase I would use there.
Awesome. Well, it's nice to have you joining us for the pod, Will. And I think we'll start probably with, at the end of last week, we were talked about Pape Clement. We had a few more wines come out on that Friday afternoon, so I'll just quickly pick up there. A couple where I thought actually were well priced and quite compelling, and certainly wines. One particularly, which if you are a follower of, should be looking at, and one really quite nasty miss. I'll start with a nasty miss and a bit of a car crash. Really, is Cos d'Estornel. We've spoken about percentage decreases on the pod before, where the numbers seem quite generous. However, where that sort of sits in relation to the market prices is another story, and this is one of them. They came down 35%, came out at £720 a six, but unfortunately, it was the second most expensive still in the market, with 16 being the only one higher.
Yeah, just on that, Cos d'Estornel was really good this year. It was delicious. There's no denying that. But at that price, it just means that you can get any back vintage that you like, apart from the 16, and also in a crowded field of good Santa Stephs this year. Calon Segur and Monrose were great, so the pricing should have worked. But there we are.
Yeah, I would totally concur with all of that. But I think it isn't a massive surprise to see them be a little bit enigmatic. They came out on a Friday afternoon, I seem to remember many years ago, when a lot of people had gone home and Mr. Muller, if I remember rightly, mopped everything up and the price was cracking. So they tend to sort of sway between odd release times with a great price and then sort of Friday, which in itself is a slightly odd time to come out given the American market and what have you as well. But yeah, they're always quite hard to pin down in terms of their releases, and as everyone says, the wine's good.
Yeah, I do remember that. I think it was 2016 campaign. Somehow I was there in the office at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and I remember being on the phone to Mr. Maris. God bless him. He's no longer with us, the company that is. He is very much present. However, I remember being on the phone and saying, Maris, it's come out, and I need as many cases as we can. He did a great job. But yeah, so that is something they have followed a pattern with. But it's probably good to mention, look, we did like the wine. We scored at 17.5 to 18. It's a big score for us, but because of the price, we're not particularly endorsing it. If you are a loyal follower, then certainly have a think about it and maybe pick up a 6-pack. But it's probably good to point out, and a question, Will, for me, Cos Blanc came out, and it came out at the same price. I think this is the first time they've ever benched it at the same price as the red as well, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And they've now got a second white as well. So it's quite an interesting development. I mean, there were, barring, I guess, Lynch Barge Blanc, there really wasn't any left bank whites a few years back, and it's something that's creeping in there more and more, and obviously something that they back. I think, without being cynical, I think that's more a measure of the quantity they produce than necessarily where they actually position the wine, should we say. But
cool.
We'll see.
But on the same day, we had the win that I was sort of referring to was Gazan. We had Gazan come out at 291 a six. Now this was a sort of a total different story, because only the 2021 and 2017 are the only two vintages you can buy cheaper than that. So again, a wine that we really, really favoured, scored at 17.5. It had a decent portion, sort of 7-8% of Cabernet Sauvignon in there from memory. So that really fleshed it out and gave it some structure, which we liked.
Yeah, and close neighbour of Petrus. Literally one of the 5, I think it is, estates that sort of border Petrus itself. And yeah, I think this is a nice return, because I think it's one of those wines that people can forget about from time to time, but actually want to buy. So yeah, well done. Would applaud that one.
Go on then, get us on to Monday. Moueix's Madness, Muller. How did it go?
So Moueix came out on the Monday. We were very happy to see that, similar sort of mindset, really. They clearly looked at the pricing of the last sort of few vintages. We like to think, certainly, they looked at the pricing of the older vintages because there's some real brilliant wins here. My own email and offer was titled, the jewels of the right bank. And they really are. They've got some amazing holdings within the family, and they work with people who've got access to some brilliant vineyards at each different tier level. So, as an offer that sums up Corny and Barry Bordeaux, we are synonymous with this family, the Jean-Pierre Moueix family. Just very quick one, just to highlight some of the wines that came out. The Fleur Petrus. I'll say it one more time and one last time. The Argentine Tango. That was my tasting note. This wonderful blend of masculinity and femininity coming together to showcase what Pomerol's generosity, but yet structure and poise can be at. Now, it came out at 750 a 6. Again, brilliant, below all the recent back vintages. You can go back to 2011 and potentially 2014 to find cheaper, but this Le Fleur Petrus is an absolute belter. It's wonderful in its quality, and at that price range as well, it's selling very well.
Yeah, just before Will jumps in and separates us agreeing on everything there, Le Fleur Petrus was absolutely delicious this year, and alongside that, I've been waiting for a while for Bourgneuf to come out. 450 for 12. Next to Trotton Noir, it is absolutely stunning this year. So both of those going really well, and an offer actually that had something for everyone as well. Pay Mouton, just delicious, and 72 for 6.
Yeah, and Pay Mouton coming in to take over for a vintage from Barry de Blanc, Barry White, as we love to call it, and actually going back to Aaron's Bourgneuf. Our colleague Ed insists on calling it Bugatti because of the Veyron family that own Bourgneuf. So there you go. He's in charge of our nicknames. But the releases were great, and I think I would agree on LFP, Le Fleur Petrus. But Bel Air Mélange, I thought, was also the best it's been yet, and it's been pretty impressive in its relatively short lifespan. First vintage being back in 8. But first vintage solo was 11. So I really enjoyed that. I mean, I'm a perennial lover of La Tour Pomerol, which I see as a real sort of insiders as one. So it was good. And I think, as Joe says, the pricing was interesting. The Moueix are also, as a family, one of our biggest negotiants. In fact, our biggest negotiant. So they really do have both a true inside track because they can see what other wines have been working. So the fact that they listened on price, even though they're not a massive producer, being on the right bank, the volumes are much less than on the left. But no, a lot of fun to be had. My only last point would be: do not overlook Clos Saint-Martin, the smallest right bank property. Smallest Saint-Emilion property. It looks comfortably down on Angelus, and is surrounded by Canon and Beauchageur Dufaux. So really couldn't be in a much better spot. And for the price that is, what was it? 395, 440, something like that. A 6. It's a cracking drink. So.
Yeah, agreed. And just to give those that are very kind and regularly listen, just some consistency. The pricing, on Hosanna and Ben Almenonge. Now Hosanna came at 560 a 6, and Ben Almenonge at 590. Now the swing in the market on Hosanna, the lesser vintages might be selling for 450, but the top vintages are selling at 750. So again, the pricing does work. You can. There's a rogue case of 2018 out there, but all the other recent back vintages are going to set you back more. So it's worth buying on promo and is smart. The same applies for Bel Air Mélange. And like Mr. Hargrave has said, we went recently and visited it for the first time, all of us. An incredible architectural, glory that they've sort of built there. But in terms of the flow of the actual inside with the design, is most impressive, and the winemaking is only going to go from strength to strength as it has.
I tried on my email. I said you can't recommend everything, but you really can from this offer. So before we move on to some left banks yesterday, go on, you two. What out of the whole wines there, pick one that you're going to drink.
Of which of the Moueix?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would agree with you on Pay Mouton. I thought was very good. La Grave as a wine that you can drink. I mean, I love doing the days of the week thing, but it's a Tuesday night wine from the slightly lesser vintages, and it's a magnum wine for Saturday night. when you want it, it just ages brilliantly. So I think for the money, Le Grave would be an absolute stalwart of my drinking.
Yeah, for me, it has been mentioned already. It's an estate with such a wonderfully rich history, Latour Pomerol, and the style of it. For me, it's almost it's quintessential Pomerol. There's a generosity there. There's a real tenderness within the structure of the wine. Usually, obviously, this is vintage dependent, but they manage to pack in a really sort of vibrant acidity, which keeps that lovely sort of ripe fruit character in a very playful way. The one that I'm excited about is, Aaron has mentioned it, is Bourgneuf. I'm excited to drink that and taste it genuinely in another 5, 6, 7 years, because it's quite taut now. It's a wine with shape. It's got a gusset, like a triangular sort of forwarded structure, which allow it to sort of sit nicely and nestle in the cellar, but it'll all come out into play later on down the line. So yeah, that's the other one.
It's enough Bugatti chat, because we've actually not got that much of it. So you're almost wasting your time. It's only about
forget it, please.
cases.
Actually, so a question to you, chaps. Then on Monday as well, we titled our offer "Plain Sailing." It was Béchevel that came out. Let's talk about in relation to today's release as well. Léoville Poiferrer. So that are two Saint-Juliennes. Did you have a preference?
I think I'm firmly in and I think it's a style thing actually rather than a quality thing. I'm in the Poiferrer camp. I've always admired it and liked it. I think they've always had a bit of a market. I don't think they, for a second growth, I think they have a nice drinkability to them. I don't think they try too hard, which is a dreadful sort of thing to say. I'm not quite sure what I mean, but that really, it's the fact that I think they are a second growth, but they're confident to make a decent amount of wine and to want to sell it. And I think I see it get drunk more than I would other things. Béchevel I admire and I like them. It's actually one of the first Bordeaux I ever, of sort of real quality, I ever drank. My dad had a case of the 86, but I find it quite high octane now. I can totally see why people would adore Béchevel over Poiferrer. So as I say, it's not a quality thing.
Yeah, I think for me, I didn't really score Saint-Julien badly this year. They were all stunning across the board. Don't tell me off for scoring everything quite well. But Béchevel, for me, I thought it was that fruit that does it for me. Mm-hmm. The fruit sort of really lifted. It's got that sort of really nice ripeness without being overblown. And at the same time, I've never had a bad bottle of Béchevel. It's just great all the time. So love the estate.
Yeah, nice. I think that sums it up well. There's two different styles ultimately. Not to agree with our resident suckling here, but I mean, I did love Château Béchevel too. We scored it ever so slightly higher this year as a group, 17.5 plus versus Poiferrer's 17 to 17.5. The price, Béchevel slightly higher, 360 a 6 to Léoville Poiferrer's 340. So if you were going to look at just the price, you might give it a little nudge to Béchevel because it's the cheapest vintage available out there, all the way back to as far as you can go, where there's only a couple of inches. But ultimately, both of them are very good buys. If you like them, buy them. That is definitely our advice.
Yeah, and I'd say if you want your Liverpool Poiferrer a little bit cheaper, I'm actually doing it at 337, which is our actual price.
True, yeah.
Mr. Muller's had 340 in his mind all day. It nearly went out on the offer at that. So 337. But yeah, and Saint-Julien, I actually didn't think stood out as much as it has done in some recent vintages, but it is so consistent. And there's only really about 13 or 14 names. And actually, if you ask anyone who loves Bordeaux to name Saint-Julien, they can probably get up to 8, 9, 10 of them. So it actually is a real dense quality orientated commune. So yeah, it's always good.
I enjoyed seeing your eyes light up then when he said 340 a case of 6. That was very enjoyable. Cheers for that.
I will keep teeing them up, and you chaps keep smashing them. So then today's we're recording a day early this on Wednesday the 22nd. We normally do Thursday. That's as Mr. Hargraves already said. Maybe he did earlier on. I can't remember. It might have been in a non-edited version. But I'm on holiday tomorrow for a little bit, so we brought it forward a day. Mitjavile. The Mitjavile wines are out, and this is obviously a big favourite of Team C&B and our customers. François is a magician on the right bank. He definitely makes wines I think no one else really comes close to stylistically. and in 2023, no exception. Will, you visited most recently there. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I really do think that as a family, and I would include obviously Tetraoberth, Roc de Combe, Domaine de Combe, and Orage in this. I don't think there's really a range of wines that has a more clear DNA and also just outperforms regardless of vintage, whether it's sort of 3-star, 4-star, 5-star vintage. They actually absolutely smash things out the park in some of the lesser years. I mean, I commented in my offer that 97 and 07 from Tertre are just absolute stellar wines, and they're vintages people would probably not necessarily ignore, but would probably sort of dodge or look to others over. So yeah, they're brilliant. I thought they did very, very well in 23. I think they weathered the heat of 22 last year very well, but they made quite a lot less as a result. They don't do second wines, which I also like. I think you get a real portrayal of the actual wine rather than. I can understand why some people in some places do second wines. Don't get me wrong, but you get a translation of place. And I thought, he doesn't. François, this is change his prices. In general terms, he kept his price the same for about 8 or 9 years until last year when he went up a bit. But he's actually gone back down to what it was before because of the market and because he doesn't want to not listen to the market. But he really is someone who deserves to consider be bought blind. And I know that's sort of a hideously commercial thing to say, but whenever I see that label, whether it's on any of the wines, which all have a sort of similar DNA of label, you just know you're in for a treat, whatever the vintage, really.
Yeah, I also think, the mark of a great domain is the discussion that is generated over that wine. And Francois' wines and Louis' wines, they certainly, they cause people to talk about them in incredibly positive ways. Some people in uncertain ways because maybe haven't explored, but predominantly because of the style that they're making. On the sales floor earlier on today, we even had, a couple of conversations between Neville and I. I mean, it's very widely reported that they're the most Burgundian, in inverted commas, of the Bordelais wines.
Have the most Burgundian cellar. I think it's a confusion to say they're most Burgundian stylistically.
But in terms of aromatics, in terms of that red fruit profile, in terms of that sweetness of fruit that they pack into there. Neville was sort of, he's saying that it's the most for him Reno-like, and so those, and I can completely understand the connection there. Those who are love with Reyes and Tournelle and Pignon, then that you can see how that connection can be established in the mindset again with that sort of sweeter style of fruit and incredible freshness that's packed into wines, which generally does have a lot of richness and but beautifully textured.
It does play. It does play itself out in tastings as well. Recently, I showed a 2008 Roteberth, and it was wine of the night. And then also, L'Orage 2018 is absolutely stunning at the moment. So once people taste them, then they understand what this is all about. How can you, there is that big question there. How can you have this ripeness of fruit and then also this sort of sensual, bright acid? It's sort of a stunning way of making wines, and it just works.
Yeah, it is a bit of a sort of juxtaposition. But I was just going to add in that you throw in Roc de Combe as a blind in any dinner and tasting. We've done it many a time. It's a guaranteed crowd pleaser, but it's also a brilliant spanner in the works for most people.
Yeah, totally. And I'd love to know where Aaran got that Tetraoberth 08 from. That's very good. I'd love to have tried that recently, but. We've got Louis Mitjavile in we're going to Noisy for a dinner tonight with some customers, and actually 18 L'Orage is one of the wines. So
it's going to show really well the sort of power that's there, and then nothing's overdone. I think will show so well.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of, it was a public holiday on Monday, which is why we're only sort of chatting about 3 days of releases, Friday last week, Tuesday and today. Next week sees Vinexpo in Hong Kong, so it implies it's most likely to be a quiet week. It would be quite a tactic for, it's quite a notable house to sort of break stride and release during Vinexpo, so we're not expecting too much. And if that is the case, there probably won't be a podcast, but if there is, there will be certainly around there.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is that obviously last time we had a bank holiday, which we've got on the 27th. the French, or rather Mouton, decided to come out and give Mr. Ditcham a very, very busy Monday bank holiday. But there's no chat with the Vinexpo thing of that happening again.
I was just about to say that sort of Mark Ditcham, C&B Bordeaux buyer, a bank holiday is needed for him. I spoke to him a few minutes ago, and he said it's been a very long week. So much so, I mean, last week he was so tired that we went out for a bit of dinner on Thursday night and then went to the ballet, and he left at the matinee. So really needed his beauty sleep.
Maybe we should send him a faux fake offer on the bank holiday Monday just to see how he reacts.
We could.
Wonderful. Well, look, so there may be a bit of a hiatus depending on how the more importantly, the Chateau decide to release. If not, we will speak again in sort of 10 days' time. Aaron?
I mean, one thing that I'm just going to add, we've not really mentioned it, is the release of Domaine de Chevalier. I was quite excited for it. You know, I really like the wines, but unfortunately it just didn't work because the prices were too high. They didn't come in at our recommended price. Now I can understand a little bit, because the white is always one of, if not the white of the vintage for me, because it's absolutely stunning. And this year was sort of up there with Haut-Brion Blanc, so I can understand based on that. However, when the general trend is that the Bordelais are reducing prices, and then that comes in, it just doesn't help.
No, indeed. It's proved to be a bit stubborn on the sales front. There's not many people too keen. Yeah.
And the only thing I will think forward to next week is that we will be releasing Rocheron probably next Thursday. Peter Sissek's property. It's been getting, we've been representing since 10, but it's been getting a hell of a lot of accolades and great reviews, and much as we don't use those reviews to sell it, we would completely agree with the quality of them. So yeah, that should be a bit of fun. We'll probably fill in the Vinexpo week with that, give it a bit of a focus. So it really is, a right bank 10 days from C&B to Moueix, Mitjavile and Rocheron.
Perfect, just the way we like it.
Nice. Well, in that case, probably see you in a couple of weeks. Joe, enjoy your holiday.
Thanks very much. Take care and enjoy.
Cheers.
Okie dokie. Over and out.